Introducing Dewar's 19-year Champions Edition. Double-aged, then extra matured in new American oak and first fill rye casks. Developed in partnership with the USGA, Dewar's is the official Scotch whiskey of the 122nd U.S. Open.
Well, hello, friends, and welcome to Boston.com's Cocktail Club. I'm Jackson Cannon, and in a moment, I'll be joined by Gabriel Cardarella, North American Ambassador for John Dewar & Sons Ltd. Tonight, we're making cocktails with Dewar's Scotch whiskey, catching up on the bar and restaurant scene, and of course, sharing some tips that pros use to make great drinks at home. First, I'm going to go through everything you need for the session, and all the while, of course, we're taking your questions from the chat. The first drink we're going to make is called the Lemon Wedge. This is a serve that the good people at Dewar's have made to go with the US Open. This is a terrific, easy to make, wonderful cocktail. You're going to need some Dewar's 12 years preferred for this one, 3 ounces of lemonade. You'll need a splash of soda water, and some sliced fruit for your garnish. We're going to build that in a Collins glass. And if you got a golf tee handy, Gabe's going to show you a neat trick on the garnish. And we're also going to do South by Southwest. This is a variation on a Negroni, really, with Dewar's 12 Scotch whiskey, Campari. You'll need some red vermouth. I like Martini and Rossi for this drink. And then I'm going to flame a little orange twist on that one, give it a little bit of extra depth of flavor from the garnish. Gear should be pretty easy today. We're going to build the lemon wedge directly in a Collins glass. And then for the South by Southwest, we can either stir in a mixing glass, or you can build that right in the glass and ice it as you go that way. Of course, we need jiggers to measure out our cocktails. These are the ones we use in the bar room. They're designed, so we can do like a lot of compound measures and build drinks in round. We have like a 3/4 ounce measure here, half ounce, full 2 ounces. But just remember that a tablespoon is half an ounce. So if you don't have a jigger, use a tablespoon measure at home. Calls for 1.5 ounces. That's 3 tablespoons. It's a very accurate device. It's a little slow for the bar, so that's why we use these, but great way to make drinks at home. Cutting board and knife. Need a little bit of fruit out. Pack of matches if you're going to flame the twist along with me. And for ice, pretty straight ahead. Going to use mostly the 1x1 cube that we get out of our Target mold out of the freezer. I've also got some 2x2s with me, because I'm going to try to enjoy my South by Southwest on a single cube. So if you like a little bit of larger ice, tonight's a fun chance to use some of that. Some questions from the registration page. We love it when you do that, friends. Nancy asks, can we substitute bourbon for the Scotch? Yeah, Nancy, you can. I really encourage you to get your hands on a bottle of Dewar's for mixing cocktails. It's been in my arsenal for a long, long time. It's delicious. It's wonderful. It's summer. It's Scotch. It's lemon. It's time to be mixing with that. But if you don't have it and you want to mix along with us, of course, you can use another whiskey. Tom says that Dewar's has always been his preferred Scotch. Not really a question. For decades, he says, and thanks for the presentation. Well, Tom, really glad that you could join us. Make sure you got some questions ready for Gabriel to throw in the chat for us, because he knows really everything there is to know about this delicious whiskey. Pratt asks, what can we substitute for the recommended Campari? Campari still feels a lot like a one-of-one. For me, Pratt, and but there are a lot of other kind of light red, bitter Italian style, kind of aperitif style bitters that you can use. You're asking if you could sub Cynar in that? Sure. I do like to split Campari with Cynar sometimes in a drink like this. That's a little heavier, but if that's what you got, go for it. You might be on to the next great cocktail to add to the canon. Okay, so that's most of that. I'd like to introduce our guest for tonight. Gabriel Cardarella is a deeply knowledgeable whiskey expert with over a dozen years experience as an ambassador, educating bar professionals and home enthusiasts alike. In his role as North American Ambassador for John Dewar & Sons Ltd, he's hosted hundreds of tastings, seminars, master classes, and led numerous pilgrims on adventures through Scotland, all to further an understanding of the complexity and beauty of this spirit. Gabriel has been featured in American Way, Men's Journal, Chilled Magazine, and the Wall Street Journal. His spots on True Education video series on YouTube have drawn up to 3,000 views each segment, and in 2017, he was nominated for Best Scotch Whiskey Ambassador in America by Whisky Magazine's Icons of Whiskey. He was trained by the great Stephanie McLeod, the Dewar's master blender, and has traveled the world immersing himself in the history of whiskey, never forgetting, and in his own words, what truly makes good whiskey great is when it's shared over good stories with the ones you love most. In lieu of taking tips tonight, he's asked for donations to Off Their Plate. It's a charity we support. We are really thankful to him for that. And welcome, Gabe. Great to have you.
Great to be here, Jackson. Thank you for the lovely introduction. Much appreciated. Very excited to be here this evening with you, virtually or in person. I'll take either one. I'm excited to be here.
Well, as a whiskey ambassador, we know that means you're on the road a lot. Where are you coming to us from today?
I am in Chelsea, in beautiful New York City, traveling here, just spreading the great word on behalf of Dewar's just before I'm in Boston for the US Open next week.
Well, that's terrific. Tell me a little bit about that partnership, because I know that sporting events, the most famous is probably a mint julep serve at the Kentucky Derby, but US Open, this is a serve that you created in partnership with them. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about?
We thought, why not bring two of Scottish greatest icons together, whiskey and golf. And last year we partnered with the USGA for the first of our 3 years, partnership with them, specifically with the US Open. So last year at Torrey Pines, to commemorate the first of that partnership, we said, why not have Stephanie McLeod, our master blender, who is 3 times master blender of the year from the International Whiskey and Spirits Competition, create something unique for that occasion. And to celebrate that, we created a 19-year whiskey. And that 19-year age statement, you don't see that very often, right? So the youngest liquid in that bottle is 19 years, but we thought, why not have a whiskey ready for the round after round, good or bad? Certainly, if it's my case, it's probably mostly in the cabbage than on the short stuff, and I'm ready for a drink either way, man. So the 19-year whiskey is meant for that 19th hole occasion. Let's provide something special. Now, where this takes a unique step, it's a limited edition offering it takes unique finishes after we do our patented double aging process. So we pioneered this process where we rest our whiskeys prior to bottling them, which allows them to become much more married in terms of aroma, flavor, mouthfeel. So just complexity really comes through after that process. And the 19-year takes upon a unique finish. And this year, the 2022 version for Brookline is a 19-year whiskey that's double aged, that's finished in new American oak and first fill rye casks. So really cool, unique, limited offering to celebrate and commemorate our partnership with the USGA. And not only that, Jackson, we are going to make this, but we have the first official cocktail for the US Open of golf. Tennis has one, the Honey Deuce, and now the USGA has their favorite club in their bag, the Lemon Wedge. So that's what we're making tonight.
Well, why don't you take us through this cocktail? Because I love how easy it is to build, and how like the structure of it is really pretty incredible. For the days are getting longer, so the chances for day drinking are only increasing.
Yeah.
So why don't you take us through that? Let's get a drink in everybody's hand. Why don't you take us through this? All right.
So folks at home, thank you for joining us. Really excited to have you all here. Now, a lot of the times folks are interested in like, okay, what do you do with Scotch? There's the modern classic, like the penicillin that our friend Sam Ross created, and lemon and whiskey tend to play a beautiful role. Ginger plays a great role. Soda plays a great role. This is simply put a highball variation. And that starts with a Collins glass. We're looking for a refreshing opportunity to enjoy whiskey. The reality is that this is a cocktail that anybody can make with a few quick lessons. It's simple. Now, the idea is that not all cocktails need to be incredibly convoluted to make them interesting. When you start with really great ingredients, it doesn't need a ton of time to put it together. And those of you at home, Jax was telling me, y'all love to cook, right? And you might know that. Sometimes less is more. But when you're using good quality ingredients, then you can't go wrong. Well, you could go wrong if you don't have to cook, I suppose. But in this particular case, it's an easy cocktail. That's great for these longer days, as you mentioned. A long cocktail meant for something really refreshing. For us, this starts with Dewar's 12-year. Now, for those of you at home, if you're not familiar with Dewar's, we've been around in the United States since 1899 when we launched Dewar's white label. So folks will often be like, this is whiskey my father, grandfather, grandmother drank. And I say, you're damn right it is. Dewar's has been here for generations. And I find that to be one of the most authentic things about this brand. I am the ambassador for the brand. And as Jackson mentioned, I've been here since, for 12 years now. And what I love the most is that it's my job to be a raconteur, to share the stories over great whiskey, which you mentioned in my bio. And that's what makes this whiskey truly exceptional. Now, from a quality standpoint, when we talk about blends, folks tend to be like, okay, what is the difference between blend and a single malt? Simply put, all these whiskeys, single malt whiskey, all of it, single malt whiskey, blended Scotch whiskey, these are all blends. So a single malt whiskey is a blend, a blended whiskey is a blend. Single malt means one single place. So all the liquid in, say, a bottle of Aberfeldy single malt distillery, which is our whiskey that is at the heart of all Dewars and at the spiritual home of Dewars, all the liquid in a bottle of single malt whiskey comes from one single distillery, aged in all kinds of different types of casks, predominantly ex-bourbon, some ex-sherry. Now, Dewars in a blended whiskey is using not just single malt, but grain whiskey. And for those of you that like Irish whiskey, grain whiskey tends to be very similar to that, lighter in style. And think of it like the glue or the building blocks or base of blended whiskey. But unlike single malt whiskey, we have the opportunity to use whiskeys from all over Scotland to make our house style incredibly complex. So we don't rely on just one single set of stills to make our whiskey in a few different types of barrels. We're using up to 40 different whiskeys in all of Dewar's whiskeys. One thing quickly that I want to tell you that separates us from everybody else, we pioneered a process called double aging. Now, what we do prior to bottling is our master blenders, ever since the 1880s, when we pioneered it with our first master blender, every single one of them is committed, no matter the time and expense, to taking these whiskeys and putting them in exhausted sherry casks, not to impart sherry character, but to allow the older whiskeys and the younger whiskeys time to balance or harmonize, fuse together. Now, I joke, but I'm from Ohio, and in Ohio, we love chili in the winter. Right? But I like Texas style chili. I live in Cincinnati. I don't particularly love Cincinnati style chili, but chili's always the best when, Jackson?
It's when it's like been steeped for a little while with a little bit of time,
And then the next day, right? Yeah. Like the next day is when you go to eat it for lunch and it's perfectly balanced. And that's what double aging sort of is allowing the whiskey's flavors, aromas, time to harmonize. Or if you think of it like a bouquet of flowers, a bouquet of roses smells nice, but just roses. If you take flowers from every part of the country, you got something much more interesting. And that's what we're doing with our whiskeys. And we've got incredible offerings to really showcase not only their ability to be enjoyed alone or with an ice cube, but in cocktails. And these highball occasions, these refreshing opportunities to drink whiskey cocktails, when someone says, can I substitute somebody else or something else? Yeah, you may, you can, of course. You could use Kool-Aid if you'd like in this cocktail. But what I'd recommend is that this whiskey, because of its complexity, using up to 40 whiskeys with a minimum age statement of 12 years, that's been double aged. You're starting with something unique, and a substitute wouldn't give you exactly what we're hoping you to enjoy. But let's get started, right? What do you say, Jackson?
Let's do it.
Easy, right? Collins glass. I like to just fill this one. I build it in my glass. I load it with ice first, and I just build this thing and then give it a stir. So you could use as well. I'm just using shaved ice, but what you could do is load it to the top. Ice is important. You want to chill this glass. And in fact, if I'm at home, I keep some Collins glasses in the fridge, because I like them chilled, right? It gives it this nice temperature controlling when making highball cocktails, especially with your soda. Now, I don't have the opportunity to pull from a fridge right here, but especially when using soda, temperature control really matters. And the type of soda that you use will have some fun opportunities to make unique riffs on these types of occasions. This is a nice soda brand that I'm using, but that really matters. But the first thing we're gonna do after we load our glass with ice is you're gonna add 1.5 ounces of your Dewar's 12-year whiskey. So go ahead and just pour that directly over your ice. Now, Jax, I see you're making it.
I'm gonna do it this other way. I'm gonna do the kind of drop ice method to have it mix it a little bit for me.
Okay.
I approve of both methods. I'd say that this is the one I do when I'm gonna maybe make 5 or 6 of these a few minutes before I need them, and then I can drop ice on them and pass them out. So
okay,
just to show you folks that 2 different ways of doing that same thing. So
yeah, well said. If you're having a barbecue, why not? Yeah, cut that. Think smarter, not harder, right? I like your style.
That should be our theme, right?
Yeah, it's a good thing. Okay, so now the next, I would finish with your soda. See how Jackson's already adding his lemonade. So go ahead and add your lemonade. Now this can be personal preference. I like 2 ounces of this and just pour that 2 ounces right over your Dewar's 12-year and ice. And friends, you're already almost done. The beautiful thing about this is quite simple, but I promise you, you're look at it and be like, actually, that's pretty good. And if there's anybody that's golfers out there, you may have heard of a cocktail. It's transfusion. That's a grape juice, vodka, and ginger beer. And that's a nice one. And this is our kind of whiskey refreshing opportunity with it. Now, simply top that off with your soda. As I mentioned, play around with your sodas. Try different things. A really great way to enjoy them is trying different sodas. There's another soda brand that I like to use, Fever Tree. Their sodas, they've got different flavors, work really great.
That's a great one. Have you used the Q Spectacular soda? That Himalayan sea salt and that heavy big bubble is a lot of fun. I like that one too.
They're great. And in fact, I'll tell you, I had that packed in my bag and I was trying to bring it here and I forgot that I left it in my bag. So the TSA took that one from me. So I'm using this soda today. But the next thing we're going to do is you're going to garnish. So the garnish with this one, we're calling this the lemon wedge, right? So this is a double entendre, if you will. This is your favorite club in your golf bag, a wedge of lemon to garnish this. I like to use a lemon wheel, and I'll show you why. Jackson, I think you like to use the
I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to do the half moon wedge. So we're starting the same way. I'm just taking the end off, and then I'm coming straight down my lemon, and that way I can do a little wedge. And I sometimes like to do 2 or 3 of these little wedges because they look kind of cute when they fan out together, you know. So
and oftentimes a long lemon peel wrapped around a glass looks really beautiful as well. It's really personal preference. And a more sustainable option is to get some of these aromatic sprays that are made with base alcohol and natural flavors. You can get those at places like Alice and the Magician sell those. But to make this cocktail truly official, if you have a golf tee, go ahead and take that right through your lemon wheel or your wedge. And you now, my friends, have made the official cocktail of the US Open, the lemon wedge.
Quiet, please, on the set. Cheers.
That's right. Cheers, Jackson. Cheers to everybody at home. I'm really excited to see in the chat what y'all think. What do you think, Jackson?
Oh, Scotch and lemon.
You work perfectly.
Well, and it's summer too. It's like that's when I know that's crazy. It's the time I like to drink Scotch the most, I think. You know, there's a hints of smoke. It's like a full-bodied drink. Yeah. You know, I mean, this is really well done too. To build a cocktail that shows the whiskey, it's utterly refreshing. It's like fits in the classic style, but kind of anyone can put this together, you know, like that's really you guys really like calibrated those different elements together in a really wonderful way. Some of the questions coming in from the chat: hey, if I make this with Dewar's White Label, will it be as complex? So when you talk about a 12-year whiskey, you're talking about a minimum age of 12 years. And generally speaking, now this isn't the rule, but generally speaking, as whiskeys get older, the more body they tend to have. So they'll sit on your palate, they'll kind of grow on your palate. Whereas White Label, I love White Label, by the way. I think it's a fantastic whiskey to drink in a highball. But when you get into a 12-year, like Jackson mentioned earlier, it's beautifully balanced and complex. So as the ice kind of meets the whiskey and the lemonade, it'll hold up to it much longer. So you'll be able to enjoy that Dewar's characteristic coming through. So White Label, great choice. Dewar's 12 is just going to be more whiskey characteristics forward within this whiskey, whereas the White Label really kind of is a more light-bodied whiskey. So more full-bodied whiskeys in this types of a cocktail work beautiful if you want that more whiskey-forward character within. But White Label, absolutely a great cocktail. You know, and I'm just so impressed by the value of these scotches. I mean, it makes me want to ask you, how do you do it? I saw the 8-year rum finish in the store. I hear that's going to be a standard offering now. I mean, that's a tremendous bottle of whiskey for, in my market, under $20 for a 750. I think I would love to try that in this drink, I think.
You know what? Exciting times. You're absolutely right. Why White Label's perfect, but we've just recently launched a new series called our Cask Finish series, which is just slightly above Dewar's White Label in price. And by that, I mean like a couple bucks above White Label in price. But we have a rum cask finish as part of our Dewar's core portfolio. That's an 8-year whiskey that's double aged, finished in Caribbean rum cask. yeah, why not add a tropical twist to this one with the addition of those notes like brown sugar that come through in those rum cast finished whiskeys? And not even there. If you want to make a perfect Japanese highball, if you were to walk into an izakaya off the subway in Japan, you could get a beautiful highball in a beer mug. They're amazing. We now have a Dewar's 8-year Japanese smooth finished in Mizunara oak cast as well at the same price, part of the Dewar's core portfolio. But for now, we're incredibly excited about being the official cocktail of the US Open.
Well, and the chat is lighting up. People finding this refreshing. A couple of questions they want us to kind of go down a little bit of a rabbit hole on. Did we make our own lemonade? And kind of what are you
not? What, but look, the fresher the ingredients, the better, in my opinion. I think I did not make fresh lemonade for this. I didn't have the tools here as I'm traveling. However, I think that a fresh batch of lemonade pulled from the fridge in this would make it even more bright and a beautiful addition to this cocktail. Attention matters.
And we didn't show it today, but when I was first making this, when we talked about doing this cocktail for today, I wanted to make it and I didn't have lemonade. And I just thought through it's an example of you're actually going to use math every day, friends, when you're out in the world. I was like, okay, 1 part simple syrup, 1 part lemon juice. And then that becomes, 1 part of that to 1 part water, right? So right. I just actually built this drink sort of the old way that we would do it. If you didn't have lemonade, but you had lemon juice and simple syrup. And I shook those ingredients kind of together and plated it. And it's also quite evocative, done as sort of a Collins, if you will.
Yeah.
Everything balanced right out. It got enough water from a kind of aggressive shake of simple syrup, lemonade, and the great Scotch whiskey that, so I would sort of think if you don't have lemonade and you have a lemon, the idea of using lemonade is it's supposed to be easier. So if it's easier for you to use a little simple syrup and lemon juice, you can make it happen.
100%. Yeah, don't marry yourself to this cocktail. At Dewar's, we don't say there's one right or wrong way to enjoy our drink. It's just as long as you're trying new things and experimenting them, drink them however you like. Now, one thing that I do like with this is if you can get your hands on those ice spear molds, the big, tall spears of ice, you won't have to worry about that over dilution if that's something you really want to hang out with the drink and drink it for a while. It doesn't take me very long to drink one of these, so I'm not too concerned with that, but it does make a little leveled up step when using those beautiful ice cubes.
Well, that is tasty.
It is, and I love seeing all the comments in the chat. I saw a lot of yums, delicious, refreshing, simple. That's exactly what we're going for here. And this, like I said, for those of you that have made one, remember this cocktail for next weekend because we'll be in Brookline enjoying these throughout the weekend, throughout the tournament, celebrating Father's Day. So hopefully y'all are making some at home next weekend as well.
Yeah, I mean, this could be the drink of the summer for me. I'm not going to lie to you. Well, hey, so why don't we go kind of quickly into our second cocktail?
Okay.
Because it's also something I really like is like a lot of bitters in the summer. But it begs the comment. And now for something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
But let's do so we're going to do ours slightly differently. I think Gabe is going to go up into a cocktail coupe. So if you want to enjoy this drink as an up drink, if you want to do it on the rocks, the South by Southwest, friends, I think this cocktail is in need of a better name. It did make it into Gaz Regan's book about Negronis as an awesome variation for that classic drink. But it come to think of it, like some of the other Negroni names, like the Boulevardier, was that really all that well thought out? Not really, but it stuck. This one, I don't know how stuck we are on this yet. So
I feel like it's kind of one of those things, where it's like, look, if the cocktail's good, let the cocktail do the talking.
Well, yeah, and then I mean, it's like at a certain point, I think, and like this is a weird rabbit hole, but it's like it has a lot to do with language, right, Gabe? Like, martini meant something very specific, but then it's so good that it becomes other things,
right?
And then it becomes the act of that thing, and then
absolutely.
And like, so what's wrong with? I never had a problem with that. Yeah, it was this. It is now that. It could be this. There was a point in time, I think, when Google was young. If you Googled cocktail, like you would get like medical therapies as much as you'd get drinks, right? Like it's all like how we're using language, and we take it back. And I'm just saying, I actually think the Paloma, this is probably a subject for another day, will become, oh yeah, the original has grapefruit soda, but here's my
just if I may, on that moment, guess who created the world's first blended Scotch whiskey finished in mezcal casks? We did that.
You guys
A
did
few
that.
years ago. Yeah, the Dewar's Illegal. We partnered with Illegal Mezcal and did a finished whiskey within that. Really cool. And I was drinking whiskey Paloma. So again, you shouldn't marry necessarily to one thing, whether it be the name or the ingredient. You can.
Well, and I think on the Paloma, it's like everybody's the line in the sand is gonna be the grapefruit soda. That's what's gonna like really rattle everybody. I'm like, I'm already like doing it with orange soda, so I don't know. Like, come for me. But anyway, let's get back to terrific Dewar's 12-year Negroni. And we could build this right in the glass. If you don't have a mixing glass, feel free. Go right in the glass, add your ice, stir. I'm actually going to use a little bit of, I'm going to use a little bit larger ice for this one. So it's just a 2x2, nothing special. But that'll give me a little less melt when I do get in the glass. And I am going to stir this over ice to pour before garnishing. So the calculations couldn't be simpler. It's an ounce of the base spirit, Dewar's 12, going with an ounce of rosé vermouth, of Rosso vermouth, the red vermouth, Italian vermouth. I like Martini and Rossi for this. There's lots of other vermouths that are great for lots of different things. I do use Cinzano. It's juicy for certain other applications, but the herbaceousness of Martini and Rossi, I think in this drink is just such the perfect complement.
I love Martini, man. It's an essential to have at your home bar.
And it's like these small bottles, like we used to, I've turned so many people onto vermouth. We keep these on the well station at Eastern Standard. And because the price point is done so correctly, you can keep like this right next to a dry out. Now we put it in the fridge overnight, but during service, we put it right on the rail. And when we do inventory, if there was anything like this much vermouth left, well, that's a lot of air, right? This is a wine-based product. You don't want it to oxidize. So I would, get staff members who were staying late, who needed a little lift, low ABV. I would be like, hey, why don't you take a shot of this? And they would look in horror. Vermouth, what are you talking about? And then they would taste it. And it would be like, oh, it's sweet, delicious, herbaceous wine. Just what I needed as a pick-me-up. And then you do it the same thing with the dry. And I love Martini and Rossi's dry too. I think that it's another herb, but it like presents like a soft oregano or marjoram or something like that to me.
And one thing to always remember is keep your vermouth in the fridge, like you meant it. After you open it,
or open it and finish it. That's what
yeah. Don't put this on the back of the bar. Put this in the fridge after you've used it.
Well, and that's why people didn't like vermouth, right? The 175 that was half open on a bar for 2 years, But and I'm doing an ounce of Campari as the bitters for this. And then I'm getting ready to pour that on a single rock, and I'm going to stir it on a couple others.
Campari, what a great drink, the Garibaldi.
Yeah.
Fluffy orange juice, a little bit of Campari, another great drink. But yeah, it works so good with whiskey.
Oh, this is always the fun moment of Zen,
Stirring.
Nothing like stirring this around. And so just trying to get the ingredients together, some dilution in there. The temperature that we're looking for doesn't take that long. And then we're going to strain that. I'm going to do it over ice. Gabe, you're going to do that straight up, right?
Yep, straight up for me, my friend.
And then this is the thing, like a little bit of orange twist over this drink is nice. A slice of orange works if that's your jam. But I'm going to do a little bit, we're going to try, well, we didn't practice, but we should try and do this at the same time if we can. So we're going to strike our match. And then, friends, we're going to warm the twist a little bit. And then we're going to pop the twist over it and ignite some of the essential oil. That little bit of flame is going to kind of go up and change the characteristics of some of the other oils that are dropping out of the orange. And we're just going to get a slightly more complex blend of that fresh orange spritz with the burnt orange spritz.
So here's the thing. I can never get this. I mean,
you got this.
It's a hard thing to do, but what are the tips that you have for this?
So like I said, get ready and strike your match. And then if you take your twist actually and just sort of warm it a little over on both sides before you spritz it, it helps with the magic. I don't know the science behind it, but let's see. And I Martha Stewarted this. I did 3 or 4 of these ahead of time.
I'm gonna just
if it, I got a breeze going. If it doesn't work, you do another one. Just try it again. And I'll do one here.
You already got, oh, there it is.
A little bit.
You already got Joseph telling you this is better than the average Negroni, and that is a bold. I like that one. I like hearing that.
This is the Negroni's having this moment, you know, like I made a chocolate one yesterday and I was like, this is so good. It's like a rich, like, it's like getting great canvas for a painter, I would think. So it's like heavy, big, structured. You can almost paint anything you want on it, you know, from there, and it feels like art, you know?
And it's just so fun to experiment with different types of base spirits. Cheers, my friend, and everybody at home. Cheers to you all. It's just fun to experiment with something new. And Dewar's 12, like the Negroni, has a moment for these things. It's a liquid to lips brand, you know, when you just try it with these great classics and twist on it with some great whiskey, you've got something special.
Wow, that's fun.
That is delightful. That is really nice.
And it's really interesting to me. I feel that like that kind of almost tannic-like structure of the whiskey coming through and really supporting the crazy like rose tinted citrusy fruity flavors of the bitters and vermouth, you know.
And the dryness of the vermouth matches beautifully with the rich characteristics of Dewar's. Dewar's has a lot of orchard fruit forward characteristic to it. So compared with the citrus, the dryness, and Dewar's house style being a lot of whiskeys from Speyside and Highlands that have these vanilla, toffee, honey, and orchard fruits like apples, oranges, it just levels it so nicely.
Well, that's why I try to, so basically a Manhattan riff with it just this week where I did a perfect style. So I split the red and dry vermouth and exactly those notes. It's just a crazy explosion of like herbs and fruits and like just the minerality that was coming out of that drink. In some ways, it's strange. I know it's whiskey. It should have felt more like I was drinking a Manhattan when I did that. And it just felt so much more like a martini. You know, it was like refreshing in a way, like light in a way.
Yeah, the interesting thing, you keep mentioning the Manhattan, and obviously the Scotch version of that is the Rob Roy. Dewar's, here's a little history lesson. Dewar's first offices in the United States, where I'm in New York here today, or on Bleecker Street. And Dewar's, in the bar that had the first Rob Roy, was also on that street just next door to the offices. So it's pretty safe to assume, we don't know for sure, or at least guess what that first Scotch whiskey might have been, the very first Rob Roy, which is really exciting.
Do you guys have any place that people can visit in New York currently? I know at different times there's been sort of like an
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. You know, when we launched our Japanese smooth whiskey, we partnered with Masa over at Katana Kitten, which is, you know, a top 50 bar in the world. Hawksmoor, for those of you that are familiar with New York, a great restaurant. We've got a nice riff of a penicillin on the cocktail there. But yeah, we're all over. You know, we're well distributed throughout New York City at the top bars and steakhouses here, especially where people want those finer spirits and they drink these classics like this. You know what I really love about this is like white wine. I like it, or excuse me, red wine. I like it chilled. You know, I like a nice colder red wine. And this kind of, I see why you like it with ice. I love a Negroni with a large ice cube. This version of it too reminds me of that red wine that's really cold occasion, not frozen, but just really nice and chilled, just below room temperature. It's awesome way to enjoy it.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that, you know, moving from gin into the Dewar's 12, it changes the presentation of the vermouth.
Yeah,
in the drink. It's instead of being pulled into this kind of, you know, like, even though it's red vermouth, pulled more towards a white wine sip, like that of the Negroni. I would rather have this with a steak than a regular Negroni, right? There's something about this that just drinks.
Oh, I'm gonna recommend that next time. Yeah.
Well, those two bars you mentioned are great bars. I had the good fortune to visit them both recently. They are terrific.
Awesome.
You know,
no shortage of those here in New York City, you know, or in Boston for that matter. I'm excited to get up to Boston, where I'll be hosting a dinner at Smith and Walensky up there next to the Intercontinental and doing all kinds of different events up that way. So we're really excited to do some really cool partnerships.
Awesome. Well, friends, you should keep an eye out for Gabe, like follow these guys on Instagram.
Yes.
Check them out next week. Look for their products in the stores. Exceptional work. Really, really grateful that you have come on to share your knowledge and this time with us. Really spectacular. But Gabe, that's all the time we have for Cocktail Club this week.
Thanks for having me, Jackson. It was honestly my pleasure. And thank you, everybody at home, for taking the time to hang out with us. Really great to have you. We're off for the next couple of weeks, friends, but follow us at Globe Events on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter for more information about upcoming Boston.com Cocktail Club events. You can find me all of those platforms as well at Cannon Jacks. Special thanks to Gabe and Dewar's amazing whiskey. Thank you so much, bud. Cheers. Cheers. Thank you.